we can have meetings. Sorry, just to be clear, yeah, thank you, Sue. You did ask me to remind people. So we're going to record the meeting. I hope that's okay with everyone. If you don't want us to have your face shown on the recording, please hide, I guess is the best answer. But just to be clear, the government has ended the legislation which basically allowed us to meet virtually and to decide things virtually. However, we can still meet informally, and then we can have a smaller group of people who will get together to formally agree things very quickly in a safe way. So what I suggested in my email to the council on 26th of May, I suggested that we do have this meeting in this fashion, because essentially we're still in a situation whereby a lot of people are not yet vaccinated. There's still a lot of cases of COVID-19 in the Bedford Borough area, and it just seems crazy to not meet in this particular way. So that was the concept. Now today I've had an email from Stuart Green, one of the parish councillors, informing me that he's not attending tonight, and also informing me that he plans to come along to our meeting on Monday night, and potentially he may query things if he's not happy with our decisions, if you like, tonight. When I say decisions, they are recommendations to the meeting on Monday. But I'm actually still asking the councillors here to still agree with what I said by that email, that whatever is agreed tonight, whether you're in favour of it or against it, and you want to come to that meeting to be part of the quorum of 5 councillors, that you will, if you like, support that decision that I put forward to just get things through quickly and as safely as we can. So I'm just going to check with the councillors here now. Are you okay? We carry on the basis that I said in that email. I know a number of you replied back to me then, and we'll disagree on Monday quickly. Councillors, are you okay with that?
Yeah, Mark, I'm okay with it. Sorry, it's Alistair Grant here. I'm just querying Stuart's non-attendance. I mean, which is okay, right? And not everybody can attend every meeting. That's fine. However, normally, if you miss a council meeting, you miss a council meeting. You don't have a second bite of the cherry to come back later. So I'm just querying his decision or his non-attendance today on the basis that he'll turn up later, which seems anomalous to the way we've run council meetings before.
Could I second what Alistair just said? We run the risk of going around the houses like we did with the survey, where 4 or 5 people spent a lot of time putting the survey together to only have it thrown away by people who didn't turn up. So yeah, I kind of agree with Alistair.
All right, but just to be clear then, if we're happy as a collective group, we'll go ahead with our meeting tonight. Come Monday, we will agree what we agree tonight, essentially.
Yeah,
I'm happy to proceed along that basis, Mark.
Yeah, happy with that too. Mike's happy with that too.
Mike's having this meeting in his garden, looks like.
Mike is having this meeting in Olhão in Portugal, mate. So.
Bloody hell.
So Stuart not turning up, I think it's a bit, well, I'd rather.
We can't force anyone to come to meetings, so that's his choice. Okay, right. So let's carry on then, and welcome. And it's great if you can. I'm glad, Mike, you can join us from your holiday. Great. So let's move on, if that's okay. So first of all, I'm going to take apologies for absence. I know there are a number of apologies. I've had apologies from Corinne on behalf of herself and Charlie, because they've had a close family bereavement. I've also had an apology from Sudesh because she's working late at work tonight. Are there any other apologies, Sue?
Yes, there's obviously Stuart. Now we know Vincent Holloway is also sent apologies for Monday as well, and Wendy Ryder and Stephen Moon.
Okay.
And that's all I know of.
Okay, so we note that. Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 2, declarations of interest. And I take it to be no written request for dispensation.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark. Could I just check that we've actually got a quorum tonight then, because that's quite a lot of absences. Yeah. Are we quorum, Sue?
Yeah, you are. 5 is a quorum for you. 5, 3 or a third, whichever is the greatest. So there's 15 of you, so it's 5.
But bear in mind we're in an informal meeting anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are quorum. I can see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 councillors, I think, present.
Yeah, Peter's present. Peter Lambswood. I know someone's asking, but he is there.
Right.
I let him in anyway, so he must be there
Thank you.
Thank you.
somewhere.
Hi, Peter.
Yeah, he's down here. I can see him.
All right. I'm just trying to get Peter on my front screen here because I can't spot him. All right.
Lovely. I can see.
Yeah.
I can see. Yeah.
Peter, because you're on audio only, I need you to shout if you need to, if you want to jump in on any item, because I can't see you. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to declare an interest on the East-West Rail issue, as I have done consistently since early 2019. But I will be participating in the conversation, but I will not be voting on anything that I think is remotely controversial. Okay. Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of May? Are we all happy with the minutes? Looking circulated? Okay. Take silence as agreement, and thank you for the thumbs up there, Angela. Right, public open session. We've got 15 minutes available. Has anyone indicated, Sue, that they wish to speak this evening?
I think one person has, haven't they? Is it Aileen Grinley? Sent an email in. So I can't, yeah, hopefully you can see us somewhere.
Aileen, is that?
Hi there.
Hi, Aileen. Do you want to go ahead, please?
It's not really, it's not worthwhile even mentioning it now, because it's to address to the councillors Royden and Ryder, and both of them aren't here, so I don't know how I could possibly get an answer if they're not here that's directed to them about the way that they're actually managing to be borough councillors and parish councillors, and yet they don't appear to know which hat to wear when they're coming to the parish council, because we get things through from a copy of the Brickhill Focus dated May, June, to say that the Brickhill Parish Council, which is you and me, that were inexplicably opted to support northern villages in a King Canute approach of trying to turn back time and oppose the whole route corridor. Well, maybe, you know, I'm completely wrong, but I feel these two councillors, they're not serving Brickhill Parish Council at all if they're sending out stuff like that. Wait, they come to the parish meetings, right, but they don't have the hats on for parish councillors as far as I'm concerned. And I really would like an explanation from the two of them. It doesn't appear to be for anybody else, but certainly for the two of them. And if they're not here tonight, I certainly would expect that they'll be able to come back to me, either in the form of an email, a telephone call, or a face-to-face. But I certainly would expect some form to come back to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Grinley. I would probably appreciate if you want to send an email through. That's probably the best thing. If you don't mind.
Sue Bottoms has already got an email.
Coming from Ian, but I'm not sure.
Mark, I did get the email. I sent it initially to you because I said to Mrs. Grinley that if she's coming tonight, she could ask the question. But
okay,
I'm happy to forward that on to Wendy and Charlie. Is that the answer?
I think so, yeah.
And ask her to reply directly.
Right, thank you.
Are we allowed to comment on that?
This isn't supposed to be a conversation, you know, like a debate.
Oh, okay.
To listen to the residents, and then we sort of can take them on board.
All I wanted to say was the point that Mrs. Grimley's made. It isn't the first time it's been made. Other people have pointed out that there is a conflict there. So that was it.
The only point I would make is that across the borough, and no doubt elsewhere as well, there are many councillors who have multiple hats on, both parish, borough, whatever. And that's the case in Bedford Borough. Quite a few parish councillors are also borough councillors, so, or vice versa, whichever way you like to look at it. But we hear what Mrs. Grinley said, so thank you for speaking this evening. Any other residents wish to raise any matters? If not, we could move on. Sorry, my apologies. If you're not on audio, visual, I can't see your faces, so you'd have to. Is there anything in the chat window, Sue? No. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing that's not been addressed that I can see.
Sorry, there's a gentleman called Ian raising his hand.
Yeah.
Ian's iPad.
Yeah. I'm Aileen's husband. And I sent this message to Sue, reference the last council meeting. I'll just read it out to you. Hello again, Sue. As at the 6th of May meeting, the Parish Council elected not to provide funds to Be Fair to assist in the campaign against Routine. How can this be correct and democratic when the Parish Council's position is, and I quote, to support the northern village parishes in their opposition to a train line through Clapham, Brickhill, Ravensden and Wilden, as per the letter from the Parish Council to EWR dated the 19th of March. How can the Parish Council members who voted against or abstained from the Be Fair allocation of funds request justify their actions? It's totally wrong in my opinion. And so please raise this question at this meeting. So that was it.
I was going to say, Ian, that it's amongst the correspondence that's gone out to councillors. So it's amongst that appears under item 11.
Okay.
So I put it all, yeah, sorry. So it has gone out, but yeah, sorry.
Okay. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Ian, can I just, again, without wishing to open a debate, what I would say, my perspective on this is that every time we make a decision, it's for the individual council to decide how they're going to vote on anything. And, you know, I appreciate your perspective that it's inconsistent with the previous decision, but that's the way it went, it's down to so many councils voted for one thing, others voted for another thing, and so on.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough, mate, but it's just totally wrong. You know, the position is this against Routine, and then you vote not to fund Be Fair. It's just wrong. Anyway, that's it. I've said my piece.
Again, as Sue said, your email's been circulated to all the councillors, so, and you've had your piece this evening, so thank you very much for that.
No, thank you.
Yeah, all right, take care. All right, so I'm going to move on, if I may, on to East West Rail, item number 5, and to consider the outcome of the online survey to agree a response to by the Parish Council to the latest EWR consultation. And so everyone has been, all the councillors have been sent a copy of the results, and the summary has also been placed online. So it's a bit hard to work out exactly how many people took part, but we have rough, let's call it 350 responses. A few of those are from outside of Brickhill, and there's a few of those also are duplicates. But it's you know, we're getting down to about 340 or thereabouts.
I was going to say, could you be precise about those that we can identify as being outside Brickhill?
I think did I say? Sorry, I haven't got my email.
It was 9, I think, wasn't it?
Was it 9? I said. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
off the top of my head, that's so.
Yeah. I mean, we asked people to provide their postcode, and some just put like MK40 or MK41. You know, it's broadly, it's in that low number, 340, 330, whatever the number might be. It's that ballpark figure. And I think that's quite a good, you know, it's quite a good response to the survey. It was out there for what, a couple of weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks, was it? In the end?
So for clarity, approximately 340 were from within Brickhill or identified from within Brickhill, yeah?
Yeah, and a few, but then as I say, a few duplicates within that. So it brings it down to about 330 or so. But, you know, to be honest, I'm not too worried about that exact number. It's more about, you know, we've got a good range of views that have been sent in, good responses to all the questions. And if I could, should we just run through them very quickly, if that's okay? So first of all, the first question we're asking is about the alignments. So obviously East West Rail are consulting on the alignments, either 1, 2 and 6 from a Brickhill point of view, which is the northern part, or 8 and 9, which is the bit closer into the country park and to Woodlands Park. And perhaps unsurprisingly, that 97% of the people expressed I'm going to use the word preference for alignment 1, 2 and 6. And obviously a number of them also said it's not that they prefer it, but if they had to make a choice, that's the way they would go. And I think, so going back to how do we then interpret that for our submission to East West Rail, you know, I think we need to say what the answer is, and also perhaps we need to put some arguments to say why they said that. So that's very clear cut. On the questions about the points about the construction, during the construction of the railway, first of all, I think I have a slight apology to make in that when I mentioned Hawke Drive, I raised the Hawke Drive issue as a risk. Some people interpret that as saying East West Rail are planning to use Hawke Drive. So at the moment, we have no knowledge about that. I think the reason I suggested including that is because I was trying to get slightly ahead of the game. You know, if they do go ahead and use either of those routes, I want us to be very clearly have said, this is my recommendation, essentially, that we view Hawke Drive as being inappropriate for site access. Now, it may be they have no intention of doing so, but I just think we should be making that point. But unfortunately, some people took my inclusion in that question as saying, as indicating that East West Rail are planning to use Hawke Drive. They may not be. But looking at the questions that were in that, the answer to that, the concerns around the construct, that actually came out. Sorry, the one that came out top was around impact on ancient woodland, nature and wildlife. 92% strong, 93% strongly agree with that. And next one down was about noise. So unsurprisingly, pretty much all those questions came out in the very high, you know, strongly agree with the various statements that were made in that question. When we then sort of tried to, if you like, get people to choose of those questions which was the most significant for them, the top one was noise with 30%. And a quarter of people, though, didn't want to answer any of those, and they said other, and then put some comments in, many of which were about the whole routine question. I think the challenge for us as Parish Council is that we obviously understand that a lot of people are not happy with the routine, but they're not consulting on that. So whatever we think about East West Rail and routine, we have to sort of, my recommendation is we should be saying about those alignments in particular that they are consulting on. And you can predicate that or caveat it, however you like. But we need to say, in terms of what's on the table, these are our views. Yeah. So anyway, noise was the top one. After noise, access came out very high as well, 17%. Others came down much lower than that. In terms of then, once the railway is actually in operation, the top, again, looking at all those questions we asked people to think about, what came out top was about noise at night. So operation of the railway overnight. And then secondly was access to the countryside. Of those, again, when people were asked to pick one of them, noise came out as the top point. But again, a lot of people didn't want to get pinned down on that and just said, we don't want this at all. We're against routine at all. And then we asked people to comment generally, and we had, I think it was 203 people then commented on that, on the general points about the route alignments. And I think, summary, lots of people were querying the route, querying the consultation process, querying the benefits of it, etc., etc. So there's a lot of sort of, you know, I would argue it's a lot of anger coming out there in those sort of comments, as well as comments being criticised aimed at some aimed at the Parish Council, some aimed at the Lib Dems. You know, a variety of people were being targeted them in those comments, which is okay. I understand that. And then we asked, on the next question, we then asked people about various things, including zero carbon, infill development, traffic pollution, etc. The thing that came out most strongest answer was about I object to route selection, as I believe it was based on a non-transparent consultation. 92% of people strongly agree with that statement. And the basic problem I have with that is that, again, people who've been digging into this more than I have will probably have their own particular opinions, but my take on it is that East West Rail are following a national process, and I'm not aware they're doing anything significantly different from that process. The fact that they're doing it stages by stages, you only find out certain things at each stage in the game, is the way it appears to be designed to work.
Mark, stop making excuses for them.
No, I'm not.
The question was what people believe, not what you believe they did, right?
Yeah.
So,
no, that's true. Okay, my apologies, Mike. Yeah. So basically, so a lot of people were not happy with the route selection process. Let's leave it at that, shall we? And then we asked, were they happy for us? Did they agree with us? The Parish Council with rescinding its support for the route D&E, and 89% of people agreed with that. 10% of people didn't agree with it. And then we asked people about, do we think it's important that East Rail comes through Beckham Midland Station? And 11% agreed, and 88% of people disagreed. And I think that's almost like, I think there's a strong correlation between that question and the previous question in opposite. So, and we've asked, people wanted to, some people said they wanted to get the results. 238 people said that, and I think I've managed to email them out today, the summary results.
Can I raise a question on the results, Mark,
Sure.
please? I believe when I looked on the Brickhill Parish Council's website, the survey results has been shared, all except for question 7, which was the narrative comments that people gave us. I'm just wondering if that's an oversight or was that on purpose? And if so, what was the reason, please?
It's, yeah, so it is simply, I supplied to Sue summary. This is basically when in SurveyMonkey it just generates like a summary document, and that's what it comes up with. And so therefore anything that's text based does not get added to that particular summary. So we only have the you know, the numbers, if you like.
Well, we've got the narrative in the spreadsheet you sent us, so can that not be cut and paste and shared? I can do it in 5 minutes if you wish.
Yeah, I think I do need to be, we need to be a bit, there is one particular point we need to be careful about, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but there is some, as I mentioned in my email to you all, I think there is some legal risk about one of the comments. Which
so delete, so redact that comment and then share the rest.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. If anyone thinks any of the other comments are in any way equally dangerous, I would say please shout as well. But okay, yeah, I mean, I've got no objection to sharing. Right, so those are that's the results from the questionnaire. Does anyone else want to sort of chip in with any other thoughts then, in terms of what we've learned from that?
I think what we've learned from that is what we knew all the way along, and that the people of Brickhill are very angry with what's happened over the last few months with the Parish Council. The fact that they don't support the route going north through Brickhill, and that certain parish councillors and borough councillors have not represented them as they should be represented. That's the crux of it all. I mean, an average of 90% of respondents back in what they've been saying at the parish council meetings all along says it all really. And it's about the parish council now doing what it should have done months ago and actually standing by its parishioners.
Anyone else want to comment?
I agree.
That's nice and short. Thanks, Paula. Anyone else want to comment? Alistair, Peter?
Yeah, just a quick one, Mark. How many out of the responses were totally opposed to a northern route full stop? Have we got any kind of number on that? I know I much appreciate your comments about the fact that we're looking at the consultation that East West Rail have put in front of us. However, there's a strong feeling that actually that northern route is just wrong, full stop. So I'm trying to get to the point of what is the parish council's response going to be to this to East West Rail, and I'm kind of a little bit concerned that if we say, oh well, it looks like Route 1 is going to be the one that people mainly support. Actually, that's not true, because actually what they mainly support is they don't want it at all.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't added up. Obviously, some people have phrased that in different ways in the comments, and you would have seen those comments in the answer to question 4, for instance, and the answer to question 6, I think it is. Yeah, I mean, it's.
Mark, can I help you out with that? Right, because the way I read it was 90% of people said they didn't want route D or E, So, and 89% of people said they didn't want Route D or E, even if it means that they can't have a route through Bedford Midland Station. So I think that was pretty categorical.
Yeah.
But does that answer your question, Alistair, or have I misunderstood the question?
No, that is the question. Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I think we're kind of, at the moment, we still seem to be trying to back two horses here. We did a survey of the residents to find out their opinion, and their opinion is they don't want Route E, they don't want a northern route, and a lot of them are not minded to support any route that comes into Bedford at all. And I think that if that is the output of the consultation with the residents, then that is what we should put forward to East West Rail. You know, as opposed to saying, oh, well, actually, if you dig into it, it looks like Route 1, we just about get away with it, which I think is an angle which I suggest we probably don't want to go down.
Yeah, I think it's important.
I agree.
I think it's important to also note, I think question 1 was worded in basically in the worst case scenario, and we're faced with it going north. Which one do you want? You know, it wasn't, oh, which one is your favourite? You know, so.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Can we boil it down though? Can we just try and I'm conscious of time. So are we, I'm going to use the word happy. I keep using the word happy and probably people aren't happy about it, but can we say that of the 2 alignments that are being consulted on, the Parish Council preference is alignment 1 because
no.
But
so no, I think you misunderstand what Alistair's saying there.
No, sorry.
I think what Alistair and look, Alistair, just tell me I'm not smoking something here, but I think what I heard you say was actually the opinion of the people of Brickhill Parish, according to the survey, is that no northern route is acceptable.
Yeah, that is basically it. I mean, you know, I think from the commentary that was put in there, and I know we spent hours and hours and hours working on these questions, right? And you know, and a huge amount of effort. Although you know, it might not look like it to people looking in from outside, but I know how difficult it was to get this survey together. But the result is what? First of all, first question is, do you want this thing at all? Answer, no. Secondly, if it's forced on you, which one are you going to have to suck up? Answer, probably Route 1. You know, but I think it's important to get that no, it's not wanted at all statement in the feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, that's where I'm coming from, and I don't want it to be sort of swept under the carpet. The majority of the view is they don't want it, and they don't care even if it doesn't come to Bedford.
No.
I think that's my summary.
Right,
anyway.
Paula.
I have to say, I've been dreading this meeting, and I think Alistair's just summed up perfectly why. I was very concerned that I'm going to be railroaded into writing a letter to East West Rail saying, well, we don't really want it, but if we're going to have it, we'll have Route 1, thanks. Because that's not what the residents are telling us and haven't been telling us for years or months, certainly, since I've joined the Parish Council. So I think, you know, if it's coming, we're going to have to choose an alignment. But I think the better part of our letter should be accounting for why we don't actually back a Route E at all. You know, that's the crux of it. And I think, you know, we need to be careful in how we actually word it to get that message across to East West Rail from this parish.
Agreed.
I agree.
That's fine, Paul. I mean, the only point I would make is that every parish is making its own submission to this. And I guess my only concern is if we're not careful, everyone just says we don't want it through our area. And they just negate each other. So,
Mark, why are you worried about what every other parish is doing? We represent Brickhill. We have to put forward what Brickhill. Yeah. Don't worry about the other parishes. That's down to the borough councillors who have a conflict between borough and parish council where they cover more than just the parish, right? We represent Brickhill Parish Council.
Sure.
We did a survey. The results were clear.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I mean, I've not spoken to Alistair about this, but Alistair's echoed perfectly how I think the people have responded and how we should respond on their behalf.
Okay, so we got the first bit, which is about the people have said they don't want Route E at all. And then we got the second element, which Alice has mentioned, which is around if it happens, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
The third element is the mitigation around those, or the comments. Why do we think alignment 1 is bad? Why do we think alignment 9 is bad, for instance? And I think I do think we should be putting comments in there regarding alignment 9 about that embankment, about the cutting through Grays Hill, because of the two, that will definitely be much more impacting on Woodlands Park in particular. Yeah,
I've got a question about that. And look, kind of agree with what you're doing, but it makes it a bit wishy-washy. Do we not get the opportunity to do that on statutory consultation and the point of DCO?
Again, I've not been involved in these type of things before, so I don't quite know. But
okay, let me tell you, yes, we do.
Yeah, I think my point, Mike, is that what we've seen is that East West Rail have used the process to narrow down the options at each stage. You know, we're now okay. We're guessing on the second stage now. In the first stage, they narrowed it down between A, B, C, and D down to 1. Now they're narrowing it down further between those 5 alignments within the route, broadly within the route corridor. If they then come back and say in 2022 and say, of those 5, this is our preference, I'm assuming that at that point we'll then get into real fine detail about, you know, you're not going to be able to shift it much between one place and another place. So,
and in your experience of the process so far, do you think anything we say will determine whether they choose one route or another?
I think we're very low on pecking order. I think the more important thing, as I think others have said before, is for individual residents to make sure they've sent in their views to the East West Rail. But we as a parish council are pretty, you know.
On that point, we're agreed that we do need individual residents to, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I still think, you know, as a parish council, it's down to us to decide if we want to submit anything, and if so, we need to put some words around that. So, the bit I've heard so far is Alistair saying, look, we should just recognise that 90% of people have said they are not in favour of Route E. Yeah. So, can we move on from? Can we take that point then as the initial part of the?
So, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
You've kind of given everybody the kind of highlights of the results thus far. Just to, you know, sow the seeds kind of thing. I thought this evening's meeting was to put together our response to East West Rail, and at the minute it seems like we're walking around the garden and not actually getting on with that business, so that by the end of this meeting we've actually got some output that we can agree to get off before the 9th of June. You know, it's the 3rd now. Is that the intention of where we're going next, Mark?
That's what we're doing. So, but to frame it, we've got the first part, which Alice is suggesting, we just recognise the strength of opinion against the route E, so we can say that as a starting point. If you want to express some particular words, that's obviously we need to turn, as Paul has suggested, we need to actually put words on the paper here. Okay.
I think that's fine, Mark. I think, you know, I think there's a couple of statements which are great, and you have also tunneled into some of the stuff. To be fair, I think first of all the statement is one: we don't want a northern route, right? It's the parish council have responded to the residents, and we say we do not agree with the northern route. You know, statement 2: if a northern route is forced on us, the Brickhill Parish Council's view is Route 1 is probably beneficial. And it's beneficial because it's further away from residential areas, and it's less visually intrusive. There'll be less noise. There'll be less of everything, really. I think the one that we want to avoid particularly is the Route 8-9 thing, which would be hugely disruptive. So however we word it, you know, I mean, I'm happy with that. And I think, you know, we can clearly put some reasons, but we don't need war and peace, you know. Less noise, less vibration, less disruption, less visual impact. You know, it's probably enough, I would have thought, at this stage.
I'd support Alistair in that, and I think actually it's enough to make a 1 or 2 sentence statement and then back it up with the statistics that have come out of the survey. You know, we're against a northern route, Route E or D. 90% of people against it, 89% of people against it, even if it comes through the station. Point 2. I can't remember what the percentage was. Whatever a percentage was of people preferred Route 1 versus Route 9.
97.
97% preferred Route 1 to Route 9. And the highest scoring areas of concern were noise, wildlife disruption, environment, and just state the facts that have come out of the survey. I can't think anybody could argue with us doing that.
Right. Okay. I think we should also say the particular points of concern about alignment 9, which is around that embankment and around the cutting. So are we happy to include that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's disastrous for Ravensden as well. I mean, it's going to be absolutely horrible. I mean, you know, none of these are going to be good, right, for anybody, right? It's going to take years. It's going to be hugely disruptive, and it's going to make an absolute bloody mess. But you know, we've got to try and mitigate somehow out of that. And I really think that the one that's the 8-9 thing is going to be disastrous. That is going to be really intrusive, much more so than the Route 1, even though in fact Route 1 goes further away from us. That's not the only reason.
Do we want to mention the tunnel question for Route 8, for alignment 8 and 9? Because I think I've seen some figures, which I'm not sure how much it relates to that particular section of the route, but the amount of material would have to be carved out from Grays Hill and to be put into the embankment. Well, I guess one would feed the other, but it'd be quite a significant volume of material to be shifted. And in order to reduce the alignment and reduce the visibility of it, the only way I can see of doing that would be some form of tunnel solution.
Well, you know, I don't think we're capable of calculating the amount of earth that would have to be shifted with a tunnel, you know, compared to a cutting. It doesn't sound materially different in terms of quantity to me. I mean, you know, you can add it in there, but I think it's a bit of a red herring, really. I think we're more engaged with the idea that the cuttings are going to end up diminishing the limited rights of way that we've already got across North Bedfordshire. Yeah, which is a big issue, really, and that is the sort of thing they're going to start cutting the costs out of. Right. I'm sure.
Okay. Any other particular points then? People want, so we've got the general point about we don't agree with. We've got if a northern route is forced upon us, our preference is alignment 1, and we say here include the, if you like, the reasons, and we refer to the stats. We can put some words in about alignment 8 and 9. Are there any other points that people definitely want us to include?
I think
around those?
Access to countryside was of particular concern to residents, and once the 100-metre track has been laid, anybody this side of it is cut off from getting to the other side of it. Yeah. So I think we've talked at length about bridleways and such and bridges and things like that. I can't see how they will make provision for us to be able to access the other side of the train line and effectively cutting the countryside off from people of Brickhill. So I do think whether it's alignment 1 or 9, that the case is true, but clearly with alignment 9, that would be even less countryside for people to access, which people have said has been invaluable during COVID and beyond. So I think something about expansion of the country park and planting more trees is a misnomer. I think it is access to the countryside that's been cut off.
So I circulated a document on access on footpaths and bridleways to everybody, which included the comments that were made by Cambridgeshire County Council, Natural England, and I think it was Central Bedfordshire Council. And clearly those organisations are advocating better access. And I think in the Bedford Borough Council submission also does the same. And I think we should very definitely stress that, because between basically, as Paul has suggested, basically, if either of those alignments are put in place, we'll end up with the only options for public access will be, it would appear, would be either Hort Drive to Carriage Drive, which is only a public footpath. It's because it's a private road at the Carriage Drive end, and Grace Hill itself. So it would be nothing in between the two. So we'd lose the limited, well, there are quite nice footpaths there, but the bridleway situation is really, really poor, with only 2 bridleways that don't actually connect with each other, one from Clapham side and one from the Brickhill side. So I really think that is absolutely a thing we should be urging upon them to do.
That come out at 91%. So, yeah.
So, anyone else want to throw any other things we want to get into this submission?
Can I just quickly say, someone has told me they're trying to get in. I don't know.
I can't see anybody, I'm afraid. I do keep looking, but
Right, okay.
there's nobody listed as in the waiting room. Everybody's in. I'll just keep looking now.
Okay, thank you. Right, so, and our meetings are not great places to create a nice, neat document, but Sue, do you have enough to go on based upon what has been outlined this evening?
Well, what I'm going to do, obviously, we've recorded the meeting, haven't we? So I've not written anything down because I'm going to play it back and do that. So, I mean, I originally downloaded the consultation document, you know, and it sounds like to me that actually we're going to ignore that. And instead, we're just going to put together a response, aren't we? Based on the questionnaire results, rather than try to fit in round this East-West Rail 40 question thing that we've got, of which only really questions 33 to 37 focus on Bedford, don't they? Really, so is that right?
Well, 38 is the key one for Brickhill.
Yes, sorry, and 38, yeah, quite right.
The only point I would perhaps add to that is, in their questionnaire, they're asking you to put a scale on all 5 of the alignments. So even though they're saying that 1 and 9 are their emerging preferences, they're still also consulting on the other 3 as well. Sorry, Paula, do you want to come in?
Sorry, carry on. I'll come in after you.
Well, just to say that I think, you know, arguably, in a scale, you may want to say, I don't know how you rate this, but 8 down there with 9 and 2 and 6 up there with 1. Paula.
I was just thinking too, I totally agree with you. Having looked at the East-West Rail form myself as a person to respond, I found it completely unhelpful and was trying to shoehorn me into answering particular questions in a particular way. So I do think a letter would be more appropriate.
Yeah.
And where we're saying that we don't want the northern route, you know, we've got just over 92% of people saying that the consultation they don't feel was transparent. And I do feel information like that needs to be put into that letter so that East West Rail understand the strength of feeling coming out of this parish.
So what you could do is at the beginning, you could put that in.
Yeah.
And then say, but we are also going to respond to the consultation. And therefore, if that is the case, if Route E, it does go forward, then these are our views. And that's what you talk about, isn't it? So choosing between your routes and so on. Well, what I'll do is if I put together something tomorrow based on this beginning bit of the meeting, I'll circulate it. Is that a good idea?
Will that come to the people present this evening, Sue, or will that go to the whole council?
Well, I suppose technically you'll let people, everybody have to have a look at it. But if at the end of the day, it's you as a group who are going to make that recommendation, then it will just be you, I think, who make that recommendation to go forward. I mean, but then everybody technically would need to be able to see it anyway, wouldn't they? Just as anybody who's listened into this meeting will know effectively what's going into that. I think that would be reasonable, wouldn't it?
Can we just include, sorry, are we happy to include with that the comment about Hort Drive that we believe is not a suitable access for any work sites? Just throw that in as well. And the other point, when we had our previous meeting, I think with the Borough Council, we talked a bit about the actual main railway station, and we talked about the bus services for that, where currently it's very poor in terms of people get dropped off on the street on the way if they're heading towards town. And I think we suggested that in that any new redesign of the station should include proper, adequate, safe access and egress to buses, on and off buses. We're okay to include that. That ties in with their sort of question 3 station experience. Everyone happy with that?
Oh, sorry, Mark, you've lost me there, because I mean, it sounds like, whose question 3 was that? East West Rail's question 3.
So in the East West Rail consultation document, I know we're saying we're not going to go to the document slavishly, question by question, but that's one of the questions they're asking about, is about the station itself, about the station experience, and how can station forecourts and approaches be designed to offer the most convenient access for walking, cycling, and bus services. And I think if anything does happen to the station in Bedford, it is an opportunity to make it better from the point of view of for bus users.
Did we ask that question of residents?
We didn't include that. No.
So why would we comment on it?
Well, we have, we don't have to just comment on the survey. We can put other things as well. That's what we had that in
our residents said they don't want it going through Midland Main Line, so I don't suppose they really care what the experience is like.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, yeah. But it's a point we raised in our meeting previous, when we had the meeting with the mayor and the borough council. So it seems a fair point to make.
Could I just raise another question? Just on I was just looking at the questions 8 that we asked residents, where it said about the non-consultation, and then there was another question about financially supporting BFARE. Now, I know we passed a motion at our last meeting where we voted against that. Having shared views from residents, now we've got a data set that tells us 86% are in favour of that. I wonder if that's something that we should be looking at as a council moving forward, not necessarily today, but that data is quite high, isn't it?
Yep. And there are some of the questions there, like that question obviously doesn't relate to our submission to the East West Rail consultation. That's more of an internal point for consideration, I think. Are there any other points in terms of the response to East West Rail? Any other gaps?
So can I just clarify then, Mark, in terms of the Parish Council, the Parish Council's response is going to be a letter based on what we've described, which is number 1, no northern route, number 2, if it's imposed on us, it's route 1, and then some words around why we prefer that to the other. We're not suggesting that the Parish Council as a whole is going to fill in East West Rail's 40 steps to freedom, or whatever it is. The Parish Council, you're relying on residents to do that.
But Alistair, you are a resident. So
yeah, I know, and I have to admit I've not done it yet, Sue, sorry.
So all parish councillors should respond as individuals. Otherwise, don't just rely on putting it in as parish council.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm getting to. So the Parish Council's response is a letter. It is not filling in the form that East West Rail have provided.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right. Are we okay then to...
Can I just, for record, Mark, just so I'm really crystal, the councillors that have turned up this evening are the ones that agreed what was going to be in that letter. So when Sue has put that letter together, and it then goes out to the whole council, the people that aren't here this evening clearly haven't helped formulate that response. And so we said, I believe at the outset, that Monday's meeting was to sign it off based on what people had said this evening. So what I'm trying to get at is I don't want email tennis over the rest of this week and the weekend over arguments and semantics. We've said what we've said, and that's the letter.
Yeah, I'd recommend we keep it simple. We outlined the process we're going to follow at the beginning of this meeting, and from my perspective, we should stick with that process. So this is the opportunity to challenge, to change, or whatever. But once we've gone past this point and reached agreement, that's it. Okay. Now I know.
So, Mark, can we just clarify how on Monday we ensure that this decision that's made tonight is the one that's carried forward?
Well, I'm expecting a quorum of council to turn up and vote for it. Now,
What you expect,
well,
could be something entirely
I
different.
don't think any, it's a question of trust here, and I have to say I'm trusting everybody to agree with that. Now, I mentioned that Stuart Green is not happy with the general, but it's more of a general point about Zoom rather than I think about this particular point. But I'm certainly not expecting to have a full-blown debate on this subject on Monday evening. I'll be, ideally, I'd like to move the entire evening's business on block and just say on, Thursday night, this is what we agreed. Monday evening, we'll move it. End of.
Right. How are we deciding who the 5 people are for Monday?
Well, I know you volunteered, I think, can you? Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I think Mr. Barlow may not make it back in time. I don't know.
I volunteered as well.
You have, Paula, thank you.
Yeah, I can do it, Mark.
Announced it. So,
yeah, I mean, really, ideally, it should be the people that are here tonight.
Right.
As a preference, I'd have thought.
I think what I'm worried about is we met as a group to do the questionnaire, and then when we finished it, it then got rejected, and then we had to go through all what we had to go through. I don't want to do that again.
No, I understand that. And I don't think it will. I'm strongly arguing not to, as you say, go around the houses, keep reopening it. We've agreed something this evening. Let's just move forward, get our submission in, and everyone should do their submission. I'm like Alistair, I've not done one myself either, but I think, I will make some comments. And if everyone does the same, who knows how that may be taken.
Mark, there are only 4 of you who've volunteered so far. I'll just make the point that wouldn't be quorum, would it? So obviously there may be other people. I've only got Michael, Paula, Mark, that's you, and Alistair, that's it, who are prepared to come along. So I'm not sure who else is going to come along.
Okay, right. I shall have to, obviously we're not all present this evening. So
Catherine's not here, obviously, I don't think.
No.
Sudesh, obviously.
What about Sudesh? Yeah, I was going to say.
Here.
Well, that's a challenge for us to work on, ready for Monday, right? Okay, can we move on beyond this item? We've got an agreement. So it's going to create a response document which we share around the councillors, and then agreed on Monday, formally agreed Monday for submission. But I'm not expecting any significant amendments on Monday at all. It's really a case of, and even grammatical issues. I just want it, we've agreed tonight, you send it in, that's it. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on East West Rail? If not, can we move on to the next item, please? Which is item 6.
Nice, girls.
Mike, you're not on
Similar dresses.
mate. Thank you, sorry. Item 6, financial matters, which have been circulated, and that's to consider item 1, the bank reconciliations and any accounts for payment. And I think, Sue, you sent around one which is around the play area.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear? There is, yeah, because I went to have a look on Monday. It was being well used. There was a few adults there saying how pleased they were with it, so that was all good. And it looks fine to me. I don't know if anybody else has been and had a look, but I was pleased with the work that's been done. So yes, you're quite right. We've already paid the equipment, which was just over £10,000, and so now we've got the invoice through for the surfacing work. There's a new signs have gone up. I've sent them out so people can see, and we're waiting for the new gate. So the gate you go into if you come down from St Mark's is broken. That's going to go in hopefully at the end of the week. So that will be additional money. So that would be about another £1,700, which we know. So I just really wanted that agreement for that. It's £15,436. Then there's VAT on top of 3,000 just over, but of course we claim that back. So technically for us it's 15,000, just over 15.5. And I know Alice just said, it's really good if we can promote that, because people don't seem to always realise that we do spend money on on trying to improve, things like the play area, because we've only taken it over relatively recently, haven't we? It was a bit run down, and more money hopefully will get spent to improve it next year. And there's only one other, which was office hire for this month, £188. So I just really want to put those through. If that's okay.
Yeah. Is everyone happy with that? I'm sorry, Paula.
Mr. was first.
Who was indicating there? Sorry.
Yeah, just reference the publicity for it. I'll send you some words, Sue. I'm grateful if you could have a look at those, and I'm quite keen that we get that on the Parish Council website as a Parish Council initiative before it appears in any other publication.
Okay. Yep, I will send it to. I'll have a look at the words, and I'll send the pictures with that to Simon, and he can put it on the website for us, can't he, and on the Facebook, etc. Yeah.
Thanks, Sue.
Okay.
I think I was coming from the same perspective as Alistair. That the work of the Parish Council needs to be credited to the Parish Council, and the spends from the Parish Council need to be recognised as such, rather than any other organisation.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. So that's item 7. That's 6.1. 6.2. To consider allowing the clerk to process payroll, PAYE and pension contributions on the 27th of each month. Sue, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so what did happen up to the end of March was, of course, Bedford Borough Council ran payroll. So we would get, by the 12th of the month, we get an invoice from them. Well, it was a direct debit, so it was automatically paid. And then payroll was run on the 27th of the month. That is payment to to myself and the other salaried people. So now that we're doing it ourselves, I just really want permission to do that, because what we now have to do is we have to pay payroll, PAYE and pension contributions. We have to pay those 3 things separately. And if we don't agree that I do that on the 27th of each month, it means we're then into the following month before salaries are paid, before payroll is, before PAYE. So I just really wanted to say to people that it would make sense we do that, so that we're not, and we do have it on the minutes, and we have it listed amongst the accounts for payments, so people can see what's gone through. So that's okay. Yeah.
Everyone happy with that? Okay. Thank you. Item 6.3, the report from the internal auditor.
Okay. Right, so this is all part of the annual return, what's called the AGAR, that we send off to our external auditors, who are called Mazars. So we have a particular form that's filled in, which is what's included here, the annual internal audit report. I know some people may notice that there are 4 boxes ticked as not covered. What that means is that they don't apply to us. And if anybody looks right at the very bottom of the sheet, it says, if the response is not covered, then you need to put a separate note to the internal auditor does explaining why that should be the case. So we don't run petty cash, so that's why it's marked as not covered. We completed this paperwork, which is part 3 last year, because we've got a turnover that's over 25,000. So we're not exempt from external audit, and therefore we must do that. So that's ticked. And also we've ticked the fact that because we've got a turnover above 25,000, the Transparency Act doesn't apply to us, but it does to smaller parish councils. So as a result, we tick that as not covered. And then the very bottom one is the fact that we're not a trustee. So we've got nothing that we're responsible for. And that's it really, unless anybody's got anything else.
Okay, is everyone happy with that? So both that's the annual governance statement, thanks Mike, and the internal audit report as well. So thanks Sue for steering us through that again. So that actually, I think, is the last part of that financial matters report, isn't it, Sue?
Well, yeah, then you've got to agree part one, the annual governance statement, and then I'll need to get that to you to be signed. And
Sorry,
obviously I have
so
to
that,
sign it.
okay, I took that as being all part of the internal auditors report.
No,
So,
no, that's a separate bit. There's three
okay,
bits
sorry.
really for us.
In that case, fine. So annual governance statement's been circulated with lots of things being ticked.
Well,
Everyone happy with that? Okay, sign this agreement. Okay, thank you. And so
right, and then the last bit, they have to be done in a set order. If we get the governance statement in the wrong place in the minutes, we get fined about £200 or £300. So the accounting statements part 2 is the last bit of this, and again, all it does is really break down income into precept and other income, and then expenditure into staff costs and effectively other expenditure. That's all it does. And then I have to send off to Mazars an explanation why there is a variance between the 2 years. So I would have to explain why total receipts were considerably more last year compared to this year, and so on. And then they will look at that, decide whether it sounds reasonable or not, and hopefully give us a tick on the box.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So everyone happy with the accounting statements then? Thank you very much. Right, so moving on to item 7, to note the existence of the Bedford Freight Strategy document, to receive any update on the actions taken and the progress of the new version. And I think Alistair has circulated an email. Alistair, do you want to talk to that?
Yes, thanks, Mark. Okay, so freight strategy, and thank you very much to Peter for digging out the historic document that was now 10 years old and it's just about to expire from the borough. Now, the fundamental issue that I'd like to get on the table is that as a parish council, I'd like us just for once to be ahead of the curve of something happening rather than reacting to events, which seems to be where we are a lot of the time. So with this document, which is available online, I can basically summarize it. It's a load of actions around freight within the borough as a whole, together with a map that's rather hard to read. But there are freight corridors defined by the borough of 2 different standings, the primary and secondary freight. And as far as Brickhill Parish goes, the only defined freight corridor is actually Kimbolton Road, which is considered to be a secondary freight route. Now then, in the process of having this document rewritten, and it's a 10-year document and it expires this year, I'm keen that we get input into that process and make sure that nothing mysteriously appears in the next 10 years which could adversely affect Brickhill residents. Now, we have had a little bit of correspondence with the manager for traffic operations at the borough. Thank you, Sue, for that. And some of his comments kind of left me a little bit concerned that the borough's view was that everything should be allowed all the time until such a point as it becomes so unbearable for residents that then actually it has to be dialed down a bit, but not excluded. Whereas my feeling is really, if you have things that you want to protect, you should be doing something about it now before it becomes a problem. And this was really predicated by some of the commentary we've had over the last few months in council about increasing HGV traffic in particular, some of which is tending to pass through the parish without any sort of stop-off or delivery. So it's not actually a Bedford business or a Brickhill business or anything doing anything useful locally. It's just passing right through. And the obvious example of that is the growing beds facility at Sunderland Hill, which has a fairly steady HGV traffic associated with it that does come through Brickhill, both to deliver and then empty trucks going back. So really, I was going to try and get some engagement with the agreement of the council to see if we could get involvement in the creation of the new freight strategy document, make sure that if there's anything in there that we think is going to be adversely effective of Brickhill, then we can try and head it off. before we get something presented with us as a kind of a fait accompli, which I feel might happen if we're not careful. Yeah, sorry, Paula.
I was going to ask a question, and forgive my ignorance, I'm not overly familiar with the freight strategy. The fact that this runs out now, coinciding with the timeline of East West Rail, is this freight strategy for the borough specifically road, or would it therefore include also the train line?
It's all road freight. There's nothing in there about rail at all, as far as I'm aware anyway. I mean, what I'm referring to is part of a bigger document, but there's nothing in here. I was specifically looking at road freight, to be honest. And I think it's purely coincidental that the 10-year period has run out this year. That's nothing to do with any sort of malign intent in terms of East West Rail.
Yeah, Peter.
Do you think that there's... Oh, sorry, Peter. I was just going to follow up that question. Do you think that there's any mention here? You know, we were talking earlier about moving all the soil and access to and from. Would that form part of the road freight strategy, or is that not considered freight?
Well, it certainly would be considered as freight. And this is kind of where I was thinking that we obviously will input into East West Rail around how they're going to do their construction, if indeed it ever happens at all. And we would want to have close control over access, times of use and all that kind of thing. And to be fair, the borough has put that in their submission too. However, it's kind of a bit of belt and braces. If we had a freight strategy that actually already prevented certain activities at certain times of night, for example, which is one of the suggestions I'm going to put forward, then we can say, actually, you know, we've got that in place already. You have to comply with that as well as whatever else we're going to try and have as a condition. So that was really my feeling. Sorry, Peter, were you wanting to come in there?
Well, if I may just answer the last question, when any construction is done which involves cuttings and embankments, ideally they try and not move any soil or material away from the site. When they do a cutting, the material taken out of the cutting is then used for the next embankment. So it is only moved 100 or 2 yards down the line.
But I think Alistair's general comment though is just being a bit precautionary and just trying, as he says, get ahead of the game on that. So, yeah.
But if I could just go on to the freight strategy, about 5 or 6 years ago, or just after the document was released, there was a rise in HGV traffic that came off the A428 and went along North Road and then Wentworth Drive. And I tried to get no entry for lack of access in Avon Drive, Waveney Avenue and Linnet Way, and I was told it couldn't be done. But the secondary route, I was told, strictly was down Kimbolton Road and then up Brickhill Drive. So I tried to get no entry sign on the end of Linnet Way and also Avon Drive, but I wasn't successful.
Thanks, Peter. So in Alistair's comments, you're suggesting 4 different bullet points, essentially, 4 actions.
Yes, I am. I mean, one of them was the following up on the positive signing for HGVs exiting Manton Lane site, which I to be honest, I could probably walk up there and it's probably quicker for me to go up there and have a look myself. And this is the idea, is that they are diverted to turn right and down towards the bypass rather than coming left and then through Brickhill Drive. So I think that's definitely something that Andrew Prigmore was going to look at, and he's the borough traffic operations manager. So I think we need to follow up on that and see what's happening with it. I'm happy to engage, and Peter, sounds like you might be interested as well in finding out what's happening with the updated freight strategy document, if indeed anything is happening. My third point was to suggest although we discussed weight limits and various restrictions and didn't have any success with, for various reasons, with getting them done, whether a nighttime ban would be applicable. Now, my angle on this is I don't perceive at the moment that HGV traffic in Brickhill overnight is actually a problem. In fact, I don't think there's any. I mean, there might be. I'm happy to be corrected, but I don't think there's any. So the argument that it would be affecting business goes away because they're not doing it now. So in order to prevent a future development or rerouting or something having an adverse effect on residents, we could try and get that done immediately, or as soon as immediately is with the borough, to try and protect ourselves from something which will of course then add up to a little bit of assistance with East West Rail as and when they decide to do what they're going to do. The other point really was the point 4 was the freight monitoring system. And there's a lot of stuff in the document about how the borough are going to monitor traffic and do all sorts of, you know, fancy things around tracking traffic levels. But most of it is caveated with it depends on budget and or priorities. So I take that as being actually they haven't done it and they're not going to. But I might be wrong. But if that's the case that they haven't done it, then I'm interested in knowing how they could do it now, bearing in mind the document was written 10 years ago, technology's moved on, and it somehow, to me at least, seems simpler to monitor traffic now than it did 10 years ago.
Peter.
When we had the presentation from the developer of this car warehouse on Mountain Lane, they said that all their HGV movements would be by night only, and they wouldn't have any problems in congesting the roads in the daytime. So that's an example of possibly we should try and get them to turn right and not left when they make those movements.
The bit I would add to that, the point about the signage, positive signage for the HGVs from Mountain Lane, it ties in with that strategy document in that if the only road in Brickhill Parish is Kimbolton Road, then that's essentially, that means that's the only one that's deemed suitable for HGVs. Then by definition, therefore, you shouldn't be having them using Brickhill Drive and all the roads off it. And really it's understanding what that means and whether, for instance, through engagement with the various mapping companies, you know, the route mapping software, that can that be built into their software so that they, if an HGV driver is trying to find a route out from Mountain Lane out to Cambridge, for instance, you know, which way they're going to take them? Will they take them east through Brickhill, or will they take them down the A6? And, or, you know, what will happen? But that may be a point to add on to what you're suggesting there, Alistair.
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's slightly disturbing that, as Peter points out, that a business can say, "Oh well, don't worry about congestion because we're going to shift all our stuff at night." It's like, well, oh great, you know, that's not really an answer, you know, to something that probably shouldn't be there in the first place. But anyway, I think really that there's a process going on with the borough. I strongly recommend, with the support of the council, that we take a close interest in it, particularly with potential future developments in mind, that we understand what that means. I mean, the borough is taking a kind of, you know, almost a national level view of it, and I think we need to make sure that we have our input into that. Okay,
is everyone happy then that we go forward with what Alistair is outlining in his email? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Alistair. Thanks for all the hard work.
Thank you for your support.
Mark, can I just ask then, in saying we're going to go forward, is Alistair going to go forward with it? So the things he's identified there, because otherwise I'm just checking how we're going to do this. Yeah. Is it Peter and Alistair going to work together? I think
Alistair is volunteering.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have a go as I've sort of started gnawing at this, and I certainly welcome Peter's knowledge and expertise to help.
Okay, lovely, good.
Great stuff. Thank you. On to item 8, to receive a report from the Borough Councillors. I don't think I've seen any reports, Sue, from any of the Borough Councillors.
I haven't, no.
Okay, maybe if we get them later, we'll circulate them.
Yeah.
Item 9, to consider the recording and transmission of parish council meetings following the ending of virtual meetings, which really we discussed that last time a bit, didn't we? But do you want to add anything to it tonight, Sue?
I was just actually flicking down to see if somebody was still on here, i.e. the councillor who used to be on the parish council, but he doesn't seem to be there. I can't see him. Because the plan, as we say, we used to have that parish council used to record the meetings and upload them to Zoom, upload them to YouTube. He has attempted to hand that link over to, well, he handed it over effectively to Simon, who manages the website, but I've not been able to link up to that. So YouTube won't accept me and my attempts to link up. But that still leaves us really with how do we record the meetings. And I think Michael was going to go away and look at how that could be done, perhaps some sort of equipment that could be bought.
Yes.
So maybe Michael's the person to ask, really.
Initially, at least Chris is prepared to come and video it initially.
Is he going to be able to upload it though? Because he's handed it over, I think, to Simon. I might be wrong, but well, I think
there should be more than one person that can access it. I mean, providing the passwords.
Well, you might perhaps you link. We asked Simon to send you what he's got and see if you can link up. But certainly, I couldn't link up. It wouldn't let me.
I mean, Chris, as you say, Chris is the best one to talk to about, because I wasn't involved with it when he was actually doing it. But he, he's quite prepared to come and do the videos for the next however many meetings till we're good to go ourselves. I believe that's the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I think the only comment I would make is that the audio is a bit patchy when Chris is doing it because of the distance from the microphone. So, maybe we need to do something a bit better than that.
I believe he's actually got he's up the microphones, I believe. So hopefully that's better.
Because it
I
will
will
get
confirm.
worse. It'll get worse before it gets better, because obviously we'll need to be socially distanced. I'm now thinking to the July meeting. You'll have to be all socially distanced. That's going to be really quite tricky, isn't it? Because you've got to then also get everybody in the camera area when you're all well apart. So that's going to be a bit more tricky. Normally it's bad enough when we're all sat around the table pretty close, isn't it? We're going to get 16 of us socially distanced. It's going to be quite hard, I think. I don't know.
Again, we need to decide what we're going to do for the July meeting. If we want to, A, do we want to have a meeting, and B, do we want to do it like this one or not? I'll tell you, let's get through this week's meetings on Monday. Let's see how it goes and then review it later. Paula, do you want to come back in?
Just as a question, I think, did we write to whoever it was, I forget now, to say that we have found online meetings very beneficial and has increased people's involvement in local politics, and we would like to continue it?
Well, I have written, and so have thousands of parish councils across the land. There's been court cases held and they've been lost. And so as a result, we cannot have virtual meetings at all and have decisions taken. So you can't even have, say, planning meetings. That's why potentially Peter was trying to get a planning meeting tonight in person. And to be honest, most of my parishes are back meeting. Turvey met last week. We're all in the meeting, no masks on, and we got on with the meeting. I've got a meeting at Woburn next week. I've had Kempston Rural. So most parishes are back really just meeting with doors wide open. It is summertime and people spaced apart. But there is a whole set of other people who say, well, hang on, I want to come along in person. I don't want to be doing Zoom meetings. And so you've got to bear it both in mind, really. People will have to just come along to the meetings as traditionally they always did. And once we can actually get lots of people back together, which I think will come, then we'll be back there. But the government have said basically no. The law says you meet in public, and that's it. If you do anything else, it's not legal. And these parishes, you can't even get that. I mean, I've got one parish, they won't even meet 3 of them in the car park to decide the finance. So, you know, where do you go? It's very difficult, you know.
But it does come down to risks, and it's like, if I may catch it, pass it to someone else, they may pass it to their age relative. You know, it's not easy. We don't know, you know, our current state. Every day we're vulnerable to catching, aren't we? So anyway,
yeah, Mark, if someone has just commented to me in the chat that they'll be disappointed when it goes back to stop being virtual, and that they won't be able to make the meetings because they've got children. Would it be possible to maybe have a hybrid meeting where obviously the main meeting is in St Mark's, but there's also like a Zoom facility where people can actually ask questions via Zoom to the meeting?
Yeah, so my understanding of the legalities is that councillors have to be physically present to make a decision, but everyone else who's not there can, like members of the public, could participate through in the public open session, you know, virtually. And you're absolutely right. You know, we've had many more people taking part in these meetings than we've ever had. Well, apart from, you know, one other large meeting, but essentially this is very unusual for us, and it's, you know, really good to see. But it's obviously, you know, for a particular reason. Yeah. So that type of approach. Now the only question is the precise way we do it, whether we use a common Zoom, as you say, in conjunction with YouTube. You know, a combination of the two. I quite like the fact that we can share stuff potentially between us, irrespective of where we all are. I mean, it's something that's what I'm doing at work all the time.
Well, what we could do, Mark, is if we do as we're doing now, I do it from home on the Zoom as we are, and those councillors present will need to link up through their laptops, won't they? That's the only logical way of doing it. That may rule out any parish councillors who haven't got a laptop with a webcam, because obviously you're going to need that, aren't you? And I don't know how many parish councillors that applies to, because lots of councillors just, you know, have a computer, don't they? It's, you know, fair enough. That's the only problem we've got with it. And then if there are people present, members of the public, they won't be aware of what on earth's going on with anybody else, will they?
No.
Unless they bring their laptops and link up as well. So
exactly,
that's the trouble with it, really.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Paula is indicating.
There's just two points. One is what is the power and strength of the Wi-Fi in the meeting hall? Would it support enough devices for 15 councillors to be on? That obviously needs checking. And secondly, the teaching community have been delivering hybrid lessons for the last 12 months. So it is perfectly feasible to have some people in flesh, so to speak, and some people at home on Zoom all participating in the same meeting. It's perfectly physically possible.
But the councillors who want to vote must be present in that room.
Yeah, I've just said that the people could be there physically and people could be at home.
Well, we'll have to check with Charlie about the Wi-Fi at the church, because obviously we're in the church hall, aren't we? So,
I mean, surely it must be possible to have Sue with a laptop there, and in the actual meeting, and using a webcam to actually that is showing the councillors as such. You know, a wide angle. You know, because technically Sue doesn't need to be shown on it. If she had one that showed all the councillors in one camera.
Mark's now, couldn't we? All of us could be at St Mark's now, having this meeting, sitting next to each other.
But what I'm saying, Paula, we wouldn't all need to have laptops there. We could be on one camera on Sue's laptop, which is showing the whole audience, and they can see who's talking. Then
we can't be distanced from each other in that setup.
No.
We need to work. Let's try and first of all, let's try and sort out the issue about the transferring the account details. That sounds like we should be able to fix that one for a start. And then the second element about how do we combine say YouTube direct transmission and Zoom. I think we need to think about that one a bit more. I suspect.
Yeah, I did just try to get hold of Chris again, but he's unavailable now.
No, that's fine. Okay. Right, but basically, I think we need to, let's see how we have, obviously we've had tonight's meeting, we're going to have the Monday meeting to follow it. We have one more meeting scheduled before the summer break in the first week of July. And we do need to decide at what point are we going to collectively be happy to go back into a room again. And, you know, so let's think about that one in terms of A, about July, and then B, about September. And we don't want people to be excluded from this process at all. But we don't want people to be equally, don't want people to be unhappy about being, you know, physically present. And I'm not sure if everyone has been, you know, double vaccinated yet. There may be people amongst the councillors who have not, and also members of the public, of course, not all necessarily been vaccinated yet. So, okay, should we move on, please, if that's okay? To note, okay, item 10, to note the successful planting around the Brickhill signs and consider further action. My apologies, I thought I circulated some slides on this one last time, but we didn't talk about it. But essentially, I was quite pleased that the bulbs did all emerge and were not cut off in their prime by the Borough Councillors' grass cutters. So they all seem to have come up okay. And Alistair shared the photograph of the ones at the top of Brickhill Drive, which are a bit lower, and we had a comment from a resident last time asking about them. And I think the only thing I would recommend is that we do more. And if people, as the public, have ideas for where else we could do some planting, please do shout. We have previously done planting in various places, including Ashmead Road and on the Green and Brickhill Drive. I can't think of any other places offhand, but it does help. You know, it's a nice thing to do to liven up the area in the spring. Is everyone happy with doing a bit more potentially?
Yeah, it's a good idea, Mark, and I think they look good, and well done for doing that.
Okay, thank you. When I find the receipt, I'm going to ask you for some money for the bulbs. If I find the receipt. I've got the bags, but not the receipt. All right. Okay, let's move on if that's okay. Item number 11, correspondence list circulated separately. So we've all received a number of letters from various people. Sue, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so I've basically put them all together, including the one that was referred to at the beginning of the meeting, and they're there for you to see. It's from my point of view, it's quite difficult to know how I deal with them. I generally let people know that I'm circulating them, but it may well be down really to councillors looking at those emails and saying, does any of that apply in particular to me, and to respond directly to the people concerned? Because often emails are saying, why have councillors done this? Why? And obviously, I as clerk to council can only say what the parish council has agreed as a majority to do. I obviously don't know why different people have chosen to vote in different ways. So I can only really say that I think it's then really now incumbent really on parish councillors to look at those emails. If you think they apply to you, then you reply back to them directly, I think. It's the only way I think we can deal with it, really.
Yeah. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the correspondence? To note those. I think I would just emphasise the point that I know a lot of residents have not been overly familiar with how parish councils work, or even how the borough council works. But just to echo Sue's point, my take on it is that we're all individual councillors. We all vote however we wish to vote on an item, and it's the collective decision is the definitive thing. Why people choose to vote a particular way, that's entirely up to them. And you know, they are entitled to vote whatever way they want or not vote. So, Paula.
Just wanted to go back to one of the correspondence that we had about the process of appointing councillors that we went through last month. And whilst I understand that the standing orders apparently have no cut-off point for applications, I think the website run by the Brickhill Parish Council advertising a cut-off date of the 3rd of May was very misrepresentative of the fact, and it may well have put off other candidates from applying, having realised they'd missed the deadline. So I think either our standing orders need to change so that there is a cut-off point that it's stuck to, or that we actually don't advertise a deadline, because the scenario that we faced last month was absolutely a debacle, and I'm very embarrassed at the process, and I do not wish to sit through that again. So the complaint that we had about the process, and myself, I've complained to both the clerk and to the monitoring office, it needs resolving, because no offence to any of the candidates that stood, I think as a parish council we advertised one thing and we delivered another, and I think it was reprehensible.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I have to say that actually that's my fault, and perhaps I should consider my position in that case, if that's your view. But the reason,
not personal to you, Sue.
well, it is me who took the decision to put that date on. So yes, you could argue it is me. No parish councillors suggested that. That is something that I inherited and has always gone on, and it goes on with the other parishes. And the reason you do that really is because you want to encourage people to give something in advance, because anybody can apply on the night. But then what is the likelihood of you appointing somebody, think about Zoom, who's actually just turned up that night and said, well, I'll do it, and you've not had a chance to see anything from them, or whatever. You're likely to say no. Well, you're likely to say, I'm afraid, we're not going to vote for you. So that can happen. But equally, if somebody comes forward, you can choose to not vote for them. You vote with your hands, really, don't you? If you don't think it's reasonable, you just say, I'm not voting for you.
It wasn't a personal attack on you, Sue. I think as a process of the parish council, I think we need to be really clear that we either have no advertised deadline and people can apply right up to the point in the meeting, or that we change our standing orders to reflect what is the reality. We get borough council reports at 7:22 before we go live at 7:30. I can't read those. In the same instance as I did declare last month, I hadn't had a chance to read anybody's application that was received after the deadline, and yet that candidate was appointed. Right. So my point is, I think as a parish council going forward, we need to resolve this. I take on board why you do what you're doing there, Sue. So perhaps we need to change the standing orders to reflect that.
Well, you can't. We can't do that because it would not be considered legitimate. You have to allow people to be considered to the point of the meeting. And I've had many occasions where people have turned up at the meetings elsewhere and said, well, I want to vote, and they've actually been appointed, even though other people have put in their paperwork in advance because they happen to fit the bill for what was needed on the parish council at the time. So I think the sensible thing is just leave it and say you'll consider anybody literally up to 7:30, and then away you go. But the danger then is they will say, well, hang on a minute, you sort of probably dismissed me because you've not, I didn't present myself very well or whatever. I don't know.
So can we just, yeah, so I take, obviously I understand Paula's comments. Can I just say then, as a sort of a way forward, that we just say for the moment, any future scenarios like that we won't mention any dates. It will be like in the case we had, it will be considered at a meeting. So we obviously have to say what that date is of that meeting, but it won't say anything else. And that
I don't. On the date of the actual election as such, I thought you said it could go in the standing orders. So the fact that it was
could, but I mean, take Sue's advice on that one. But I thought, if it's maybe a point for further investigation. I thought, Sue's just said she doesn't think it's possible to put that in there.
Right.
So I think for the moment, while our standing orders don't say that, we just won't mention an advance date, and it will just say, we'll be considering a co-option at a certain date, at the date of the meeting, at its meeting on X of whatever the month is. Okay.
And you need to put under the item, because I've had that before where somebody's turned up at 8 o'clock and said, you said the meeting, and I'm here, so I should be considered. And you say, oh, no, it was item 2. And they say, no, you said it will be considered at that meeting.
Yeah.
You didn't say item 2 and we had to be here at 7:30. So it does be careful here.
I mean, that may be the rules, but it doesn't make sense, because no other elections are that way. You know, if you're
Parish
standing as an MP or a borough councillor.
Welcome to the world of Parish Council, Michael. This is the world of Parish Council. We don't look at anybody else's world. We're in a different one.
Right.
And you will get people who will do that. I've seen that happen twice at least, where somebody's turned up late and said, well, hang on, you didn't say we had to be here at 7:30. We're here, it's 10 to 8. You need to consider us. Doesn't matter you've chosen someone.
You can mention the time as well as the date. Okay. Right. Everyone else, can we move on then beyond this item, correspondence?
In terms of the correspondence from Mr. Laguti, I think is how you pronounce his name, are we addressing any of the questions that he's asked?
Well, I think that was to go to the, I went back to him and said, look, if there's a complaint about parish council or councillors, you need to address them to the monitoring officer, because you can't be judge and jury on other councillors. Quite rightly, it doesn't make for an amicable parish council. So he did do that, and he's gone to the monitoring officer, and Sue has come back with an answer, hasn't she, to that, really. But it's down to individual councillors if they want to respond to individual things within those, within that. That's why I circulated them, really.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else in correspondence? If not, let's move on to item 12, to review the outstanding matters and consider any further action. Sue, is there anything on your list there?
Well, you said half the list was missing, did you?
Well, I thought from it, because it looked as if it was truncated,
right,
but I think the document just naturally ends at the bottom of the page there.
It does, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anything immediate. I'm chasing with Bedford Borough Council, Glenn, who's the person that deals with waste bins. This is about wanting more bins on Ashmead Road at the entrance from Tyne Crescent and near the notice board opposite Angelita Court. So I have emailed him at least twice now and nothing's come back. So I'll go back to him. And then there's things like the sleepers, isn't there, that you're discussing?
I'm trying to arrange a meeting, but I've been tied up. It seems like most of the spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably a good time to start looking now ahead of the winter, isn't it? Because that's when it gets a bit slippy.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I don't think there's much else, is there, that I can think of?
The only thing I'd perhaps just highlight on the police invitation question, though they're happy to attend, but their problem appears to be that they're not allowed to use Zoom, which seems a very strange situation. I don't know whether, Sue, you would consider writing to an appropriate senior officer at the Bedfordshire Police to just query this point.
Although it's likely we're not going to be using Zoom much longer, isn't it?
Well, that's a good point. But
yeah, Mark, I was at a Keystone and Baldhurst Parish Council meeting, and the police attended that, and they were on Zoom. So
well, that's what. Sorry, I can't remember the PC's name. Unfortunately, the chap who.
Yeah. Junaid, was it Junaid?
Yeah, Junaid. That's right. Yeah, he was saying they were not allowed to use Zoom, which is.
I mean, it may be he was using his own equipment or something. I don't know, but either way, he attended it.
I'll email out.
Yeah, I think because, frankly, we know they're busy. We know they're stretched. If they could just join us, 10-minute drop in via Zoom to a meeting would be much better than not having anything from them at all. Alistair.
Yeah, Mark, I don't think they're ever going to turn up just to a council meeting. What can we do to get a list of issues together that we can agree as a council, or with feedback from the residents about inputting into what they're doing? I think we used to do this fairly regularly. They used to have priority meetings or feedback meetings, which were almost independent of the parish council. But I think as a council, we should at least have a list of these are the areas and/or these are the issues that we were bothered about. I mean, there was something about car crime in Woodlands fairly recently, and I don't know what happened to that. You know, is that issue solved now or not? You know, there's kind of things going on, but we're not really keeping a list of those issues at all.
Well, I was going to say, Alistair, what I did is before, when they said they were coming, I did email out to all the councillors and say, have you got anything? Because that's exactly what the police said to me. We really want to know what you want to talk about, not just sit there and just come up with things. But nobody came back with anything. So in a way, it was fortunate that they didn't. They weren't.
I did write to PC Junaid Ashik, is it? I think the surname. I did write with a few bits and bobs from my own perspective, but as I say, limited by their apparent lack of ability to communicate with us via Zoom. And just to come back on what Alistair said, we used to have a separate what we call a community safety forum, where they would meet and come with us every quarter normally. But then they had their sort of cutbacks and, you know, organised themselves differently and weren't able to support that. Now the way they work, they have an online survey they do it's a rolling survey, I think, actually, in which they basically decide priorities. So we're lumped in with Harper and De Paris from a policing point of view, and they normally end up with separate priorities for Harper compared to us and De Paris. Nick, did you want to jump in again? Are you trying?
Yeah, I was just going to say I've had a bit of correspondence with Sergeant Boyd, who's the neighbourhood police sergeant for the area, and he seems quite keen that he does interact with the parish. I've reported a number of things to him, and he has put officers on to investigate those things. So, you know, he does seem quite proactive in that, to that extent.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well done. I think we probably need to we need to engage at higher up the chain rather than at the lower level, because they're just at the ground level. They're probably just chasing their tails all the time and having to react to whatever the day's priority tasks are. You know, so it's tricky, difficult job. Anything else on outstanding matters? If not, so we are going to meet formally on Monday evening at 7:30 at St. Mark's. Sue, did you say there is going to be a Zoom meeting, a Zoom part of that meeting?
Well, yes, because I'm going to be here doing my Zoom meeting, and you're all going to be there with your laptops, those that are taking part, I think.
The agenda's gone out as well for that. And right,
yeah, they've gone out together. It's a bit confusing, but they've both gone out.
Yeah, right, Paula.
There was a question I raised on email, which was about the traffic and the number of emails. I don't think when I signed up to become a parish councillor, I'd quite reflected on how much email traffic there would be. And there always seems to be a crescendo of a barrage of emails in the run up to a meeting. And I'm used to working in an organisation that has an agenda, and then the items that go to that agenda on a shared area that reduces that amount of traffic, which is, you know, part of well-being for staff. And I wonder whether we could replicate that at a parish level, perhaps using a OneDrive or similar, to store all the documentation that Sue very kindly sends out, so that we don't have to keep going through all of those, because I'm missing traffic from residents that are contacting me in and amongst all the groundswell of communication with each other through email. It seems very inefficient. And I'd like to ask, could we explore using technology a bit more efficiently at a councillor level, so that we can use our time working for our residents rather than wading through email traffic?
In fairness, Sue did say what she's going to do about that in an email.
She did, but again, you know, that was probably one of the 50 I didn't read, Michael. You know, I think that would be a really valuable thing moving forward.
Well, I get on average 70 emails a day as clerk, and I have to deal with, what do I do with those 70 emails? Yeah. Some of them I filter out straight away because they are, I don't know, PPE or whatever else. But all of them are not for me, they're for you as councillors. And it's for you to decide what you do. Now, I'm talking to Sam because I can quite happily bungle those emails into something, but you will still have to look through them, sort them and decide. And I'm quite happy to do that. But I'm not clear yet with Simon how I can put those emails in. So if I get an email from the borough saying that there's a consultation on something, how easy that is to put into that. I understand a document, you know, I used to be a teacher, so I know the idea of putting in lesson planning, it's quite easy. But it's when you get a lot of emails that are from residents, and some councillors like to see them literally as they come through. Others will say, well, just send them all out together. So I will have to look at that. But I don't mind putting the agendas and stuff in, i.e. documents, but it's going to be emails from residents.
I think that was more what I was meaning, Sue, that if you have an area where the agenda is with the item, you know, with the information that relates to those items, and then the rest of the traffic that comes through is, like you say, you know, you're passing it on to us for responding.
Yeah,
you know, that's different. I just wonder if we couldn't work a little bit smarter.
So Sue was looking into that, and I think last time I also mentioned I was advocating Dropbox as an option as well. So there are various technical solutions out there, but I think, you know, the problem will be the emails that Sue's referring to. But certainly, if you look at the way the Borough Council help to operate their agendas have, every item has a link to the particular document. So that would address your point to a degree, Paula, I think.
Yeah, having a
hyperlink. The other point I'd make is that what you've done, and a few of the other councils have done as well, is you have got dedicated Parish Council email addresses. So hopefully you won't get your personal stuff mixed up with your Parish Council stuff, which is a good idea, I think. Okay. Right. Anything else on so next meeting? We're going to meet Monday. So we've had say Alistair, Michael, Paul and myself have volunteered. I will be looking for a fifth volunteer to come along to that meeting and to formally agree what we've done tonight. I want it to be a short meeting.
So Mark, just go over it again, just to confirm, what happens if all 15 councillors turn up and say they want to take part in the meeting?
Can't stop them, but I don't think they will. And you know, it's just stupid. It's against the principles of working safely in the current environment.
Right. So the aim is to have like 5 named people that know who they're.
That's what I would like. That's why my preference absolutely is that.
We've only got 4 volunteers though.
Yeah, I should have to ask somebody nicely if I can.
So just to clarify, then there's basically only going to be one vote on Monday. Then, Mark, we basically block vote en masse all decisions made at today's meeting, and
I would love to do that. I need to get advice from Sue whether that's legally allowable, but otherwise I would love to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have got the public open session that's on the agenda for Monday, but again, we need to understand what we have to do about that as well. Right. Okay, everyone. Well, I think that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for your patience and attendance this evening. I know it's got some difficult issues there, but I think we'll get through this. And yeah. Hopefully we'll try and build good working relationships with each other. Yeah. Anyway, Sue, can I call you in about 5 minutes?
No.
No.
Yes, I suppose so.
All right. Thank you very much.
You usually do anyway, don't you? So that'll be all right. Okay.
All right. Take care then. Good night.
Yep, okay.
Thanks.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.